So we've sewn the inseam, the side seam, the front and back rise, and we're going to go ahead and turn the whole kids short right side out. So now we have the wrong side in. Here we have our little pockets, and we need to finish the hem, which will be step number 6, but we're on step number 5 right now. We're going to work on the elastic in the waist. So here is the waist, and I have some 1-inch elastic, and I've gone ahead and put it up against it here, and I really just made it probably about 3 inches too short for it, right? So I've taken a little bit of the fullness out. I'm not matching it, but about 3 inches smaller. And I'm going to also overlap the elastic by 1 inch. You can put the elastic around a child and tie a knot and see what's comfortable. So go ahead and overlap the elastic by 1 inch. Go down straight, don't go off the edge, and then turn. And we're just going to make a little box, best we can. Trim those threads. We can pivot again. I made a little box, a little diagonal stitch. No one's going to see the elastic, it's inside, but it does need to be secure. Okay, let's go ahead and quarter the elastic up. So where that fold is where you overlapped, go ahead and put a pin. Fold it, come to the other end. Let's put a pin. We're quartering it up right now. Line up those 2 pins. You've divided it again. Get another pin in there. And another pin on the other side. So now we've divided that up with pins. And we're going to put this into our little short. So you can always tell what is the front rise because it's shorter. If you lay this on top of itself right now, you can see here's the back rise. It's a little bit longer. If you want to check, you can look inside and see here's our double notches. So this is going to be the back. Okay, that's our center back. Feel free to line up where you have the overlapping elastic at the center back. And whatever way you caught the seam allowance in the rise crotch seam, make sure you're catching it the same way at the center back, so it's not a twisted seam. Also too, this bulkiness of elastic, stick it to the opposite side that you put the seam. Let's go ahead and get our first anchor pin in there. Come over to our side seam, put that side seam back. Let's go ahead and pin that. The seam allowance at the center back is going to one side seam. Make sure it's the same for the center front. We don't want that seam twisting. And then come over to the other side seam, which you place seam allowance towards the center back. So now we have the elastic quartered off with a little bit of extra room there. And we also have this positioned about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. This would be a perfect time to go ahead and run a basting stitch and do an overlock. You may also use a zigzag. Or you can position this down about 1/2 inch from the edge, and then we're going to tuck it underneath. Okay, so you have options with how you want to finish this. I'm going to push this down about 1/2 of an inch, and I'll tuck the clean finish edge underneath. But if I was using a basting stitch to hold it on and then an overlock or a zigzag, I would have it matched with the top edge just down about 1/8. Now I've positioned that down a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and make my stitch size larger to 4 or 5, whatever you have for your basting stitch. And I'm going to sew the edge of the elastic to the muslin on the inside, and I'm going to stretch ever so slightly to pull my elastic out. So I'm pulling my elastic, and I'm going to stitch from the center back to the side seam, and I'm down about 1/2 of an inch. This is my basting stitch. Again, I'm pulling the elastic because we can see here we have extra fabric, right? We want this pant to be slightly gathered. I'm stitching about 1/4 of an inch down from the edge of the elastic. It's a basting stitch and it can be easily removed. Now we're at the center front. Again, you're going to pull the fabric out. We have 1/2 of an inch from the elastic to the fabric edge. Using the basting stitch, and you're pulling the elastic out as tight as it can be against the fabric. We're coming around towards the center back, so we better go ahead and just trim that thread up, get that out of the way. Stitching towards the center back, and we're going to end this with the back stitch. And that is us insetting our elastic before we go on to step 5B.